When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying, or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
At Kroger, an annual Boost membership just got even better. Now you can choose from Disney Plus with ads, Hulu with ads, or ESPN Plus on us when you sign up. Plus, enjoy unlimited free delivery, double fuel points, exclusive offers, and free items. Sign up for a Boost membership today. It's an easier way to save, including new streaming options to relax with while we deliver your groceries. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Good day and welcome to Predators Proclivity, where we look at data from the season for the NHL Nashville Predators and make comments upon it. I'm your host, Preston Proctor, and Happy New Year, everybody. With the new year, going to potentially have a special podcast tomorrow with a fellow podcaster of mine, Prudence. Not her real name either. It's just too much fun at this point. But Prudence will be here and talking to me or asking me questions about kind of the behind the scenes. She likes to say she doesn't know anything about hockey. That's not true. She's watched a lot of hockey. We've talked a lot of hockey. She's watched probably more hockey than I have. She lived in L.A., made some changes to my studio with nothing better to do the last couple days. Happy New Year. And hopefully this works out. So she lived in L.A. when Gretzky was playing there, saw Gretzky play at the Forum. So she's been around and has watched a lot of hockey, knows a lot more than she wants to let on. She wants to come on and ask me a bunch of stuff. So we'll see if we actually have time to get that done tomorrow, and we'll see how that turns out. But that's a little preview of what's coming back. Wanted to go back at my last podcast. I realized a couple of things, but I forgot to look at the back-to-back records of our opponents. I missed. I know in the podcast I said that the Preds are on a back-to-back tonight, playing Vancouver and then Calgary tomorrow, but didn't look at the fact that Vancouver's in the middle of a back-to-back and how they've done, and Winnipeg was in the middle of a back-to-back, played a back-to-back the same night we played them. So we played Winnipeg and then Minnesota. Minnesota played Nashville and then Colorado in a back-to-back. Interesting thing about Winnipeg is that they have now played 4 back-to-backs, and in all 4 back-to-backs, they win the first game and lose the second game. So when we played Winnipeg the first time, we were the second game of a back-to-back and we won. Maybe something to do with that, maybe not. But Hellebuck always plays on the front end and Comrie in the back end. So when we played the first time we played against Comrie, we won. And the second time we played against Hellebuck, we lost. But kind of interesting that there's that pattern for Winnipeg, win the first, lose the second. The Preds, after this weekend, will have played their 7th back-to-back, so I went and I looked and see, and the whole thing about, what stats are meaningful and what aren't. I thought, well, maybe back-to-back, talking to Prudence last night about this back-to-back scenario, and it turns out Toronto, who is leading their division and one of the better teams in the league, just take a quick look here, they have played 9 back-to-backs. 9 back-to-backs. Toronto, where is Toronto? They've got 50 points, 1, 2, 3, 6th in the league. They have played 9. They're on top of the Atlantic. They, I think, 4-4-1, which isn't great. I think I did notice that Pittsburgh has played 8, and they're 6-2. Now, those are the records in the second game because the stat is 0 games between. And so the second game of the series would be the one that had 0 games. So that's the Penguins played pretty well in the second game. Toronto, not so much in the second game, 4-4-1. Better than the Preds, 1-5 so far. But they won both games of the first back-to-back, and then, everything points to a loss. I keep saying that, and I hate to say that, but when I'm sitting here looking at stats, trying to say, okay, what are they doing well, what are they not? And you look at the final result, does this contribute to a victory or not? Well, when they're losing so much, it's kind of hard to say something contributes to a victory. But anyway, forgot to look at that, so I thought I'd touch back on that, especially since the pattern for Winnipeg was really interesting. 8 games, but 4 back-to-backs, and the same pattern repeating itself. Kind of interesting, but didn't really see anything notable in the teams that they were playing. Like I said, they played Nashville, lost to Nashville, right? Lost to Colorado. I mean, those teams aren't really tearing it up. Colorado is 3rd, which means they're not bad, but they are 8 points behind Winnipeg. So, just kind of interesting. Like I said, tonight's game, Vancouver is part of a back-to-back. I missed that when I was coming up with the analysis for Vancouver, and so I think I had predicted, went through and I looked at it and I thought Demko would be in goal last night versus Seattle, and Lankinen, turns out Lankinen was in goal last night, so Demko's going to be in goal tonight against Nashville. Vancouver has only had 4 back-to-backs, and this is their 4th. And they don't fare very well in their back-to-backs. And in the first 2 back-to-backs they had, they did win the first half, and in the third one they lost both. Now they did beat Seattle last night, so hopefully the trend of them only winning the first half will continue. And I think the Preds have a really good opportunity against Vancouver to pull out a win. Tomorrow night, we'll get to Calgary later, but I think Calgary, also another team the Preds should have. If they're ever going to get moving, these 2 games would be 2 games to take advantage of. I'm still a little miffed about the loss to the St. Louis the other night. And we're playing Winnipeg again, so we get to talk about Winnipeg again. But in the loss to Winnipeg the other night, they played well. I thought it funny that in the following game, the announcers were saying, well, they got in trouble with too many penalties. They only took 2 penalties in the third period. It was not a game where there was a lot of penalties, but they took 2, and they took 2 right on top of each other, so that Winnipeg got a 5-on-3 in which they scored, and then the resulting 5-on-4 they scored as well. So it wasn't that they took too many penalties. Winnipeg is top in the league in power play percentage. Get more to that, but they're top in the league. Not a team you want to be committing penalties against, especially putting them, the 5-on-3 situation. So, not that getting penalties in and of itself is a marker of losing in this league, but it's not helping the Predators right now to be in the shorthanded situations. They have dropped from first to fifth in penalty kills, because of how they've been performing in the last couple of games. But you're poking the bear and you're pushing your abilities, and they just need to be better about that. Continuing on about penalties, reading the recap about the Minnesota game, and we'll get to Zachary Leroux in a few minutes too. preview. But it was apparently the penalty against Leroux kind of kick-started Minnesota into gear, and Minnesota would have been a tough win to begin with, but let's get them some extra motivation by trying to injure and actually injuring one of their key players. Way to go. We'll talk a little bit of it now. We'll talk a little bit about it later. But assuming Leroux comes back to the Preds or wherever he plays next, whenever he runs into Minnesota, not previewing that I know anything, but next time Leroux faces Minnesota, he's gonna get the crap beat out of him. He's either gonna have to throw down and face whoever it is they send out to beat up people, or they're gonna take a run at him. You just can't do what he did, They penalized Nashville overall by beating them, but Leroux wasn't on the ice to be part of that, so he still has his comeuppance next time he's on the ice. Okie dokie. So that's the lead-in.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
The playoff watch, there's nothing new on the trade front since the Parsonen trade. I'm kind of surprised, but I guess we did have the new year. I really am kind of surprised. I do have to laugh. Now, I know, and I'll talk about this, and I guess it is the time to talk about this, the playoff watch. Jakob Trouba was traded from New York to Anaheim on December 6th, and on the NHL trade page, his picture is still there. But there has been 6 trades since then. Granted, the face would be Juuso Parsonen or Alexandre Carrier, Pierre Olivier Joseph, Capo Kakko. Maybe. I mean, another person from the Rangers that they traded. Cam Fowler, though, if Cam Fowler was traded from the Blues or to the Blues from the Ducks, one of the, I think Netzlaff is the Netzlaff. That's the player that has played for Anaheim the longest. And yet his picture isn't up on NHL.com. Back to the whole, there's this huge East Coast bias, and if you listen to my summer podcast, it surprised me. It's really centers around the Atlantic Division, Now, granted, New York Rangers are not in the Atlantic, but they are part of the Eastern Conference, and it's just there. I mean, it's there for anybody to see. And I did my analysis, and I showed, yep, the awards show that. Of course, then the awards for the 2023-2024 season did not, which conveniently happened about the time I released my podcast. But yeah. So nothing new on the trade front. I did do, I thought, when I initially started talking about, the Preds' opportunity to make the playoffs, talked about on December 12th, I thought the next 10 games would be vital to showing that they had turned things around. And in those 10 games, they are 4-6. Well, 4-5-1. So I was proposing that they needed to win 8 of those games, which would have been great. The fact that they won 4, now let's not minimize that. They have only won 11 games all season. So in the last 10, they've got more than a third of their wins for the entire season. So that's good. That's good. Anyhow, so I did go back and take a look. I thought, it's January 1st. Why not go out there and look at the standings and make predictions with regards to who it looks is going to make the playoffs. And then obviously have to compare it to what I did back in the middle of December. And granted, we're still not even halfway through the season yet. So this is a little premature. In general, for the league, I'd say it's premature, but from a Nashville Predators standpoint, trying to look to see if you have an opportunity to make the playoffs is going to matter in the next month or two, because the trade deadline is March 7th, and if things haven't turned around early February, then teams that think they're going to make a run are going to be looking for players, maybe even before that, to help them. The Rangers are a team that, with the Trouba trade, and then that Capo has made that big of a deal, but they went from being a potential wild card team at the point in time to being out of the playoffs now. So they're a team that might be looking to make some additional changes here in the shorter term than waiting to February, and so. How are they going to improve their team? Well, they're not going to go out there to the Winnipeg Jets and try to get somebody, because the Jets are competing for the playoffs. So any team that is in the playoff hunt and think they are in the playoff hunt are probably not going to be the teams where you're looking to shore up your team, unless you're looking for specialty players or you think there's somebody in the minors that can come and help you, and you leverage whatever, which is, kind of what it looks like the Predators have done with the last couple of trades, and the Preds can leverage that they've got a lot of draft picks, and if they wanted to try to make a move, they've got such great chemistry with the people they've got. Maybe that is the problem. Maybe they need one more guy to come in that can make these people play except when they're on the line with the best people. But there you go. So that's kind of the situation for the Preds, and that's why I think it's meaningful. If I was doing this podcast for the Winnipeg Jets, I wouldn't be considering. Well, you figure at this point. They got 56 points, 93. They would only need, 37, 93, probably 93, 94 points, probably be a wild card spot. So, make my math easier, say 38 points. They got 38 points and they got 44 games to do it. Well, unless you're the New York Rangers right now, most teams can do that kind of math. So what I would be talking about is, trying to look at player stats, and is there a way to make the team better? Is there something that they're short on? Well, anyway, so what I did is I thought this was a reasonable way to look at it. I took the standings, and granted, it's going to bias teams to where they are now, right? I mean, the idea I can't see the future, and I couldn't see that the Rangers would be 3-9 in their last 12. They were before last night. They were 2-9, and Shesterkin, with his nice big contract, has now been injured. So he's on IR. So my favorite goalie, he's one of my favorite Kings players, but he doesn't play for the Kings right now. But one of my favorite players, my favorite goalie of all time, Mr. Jonathan Quick, who should have multiple Vezina trophies on his mantle and doesn't because he played in the Western Conference, where 25 out of 30 years they gave the Vezina Trophy to an Eastern Conference goaltender, even though the Western Conference won 12 Stanley Cups in that time period. I'm not bitter at all. But now he's the starting goaltender. Hey, they got the win last night. Good job, Jonathan. You go. Love to see him play. Such a exciting player. It's so much fun to watch in goal. But anyway, so I can't look into the future and see that everybody's going to do that kind of thing. So, all right, what can I fathom here? So I take I said, okay, every division has 8 teams. I'm going to take the winning percentage of the top 4 and make that the percentage for each division, and then measure each team's ability to get from where they're at with that winning percentage to the playoffs. From here to the end, right? So the Buffalo Sabres have played 38 games. They're in the bottom. They've got, so that gives them 44 games to go. In general, the Atlantic Division is the top 4 teams are winning at a rate of 58%. And so then make that calculation. If the Buffalo Sabres win 58% of their games, then where does that put them, right? And since they're in last, it's probably not going to have that math isn't going to help them. Isn't going to help them get there, but it's a way of making a prediction on how things are going to go. And this is the first year I've done this, so I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how this plays out. Maybe I should just be taking the top 2, maybe the top 3, maybe the top 5. But just seeing how this plays out. So the Atlantic Conference is winning at a rate of 58. So is the Metropolitan. The Central Division at a rate of 63, primarily because Winnipeg and Minnesota are on such a tear. So that will help. The fact that they're playing well would help, a 63 percentile. The teams in that division, more so than the 58% of the other teams, and 59% in the Pacific. So that is where that is. The changes, not much. From December, the Atlantic Conference was 57%. Now it's 58. So Metropolitan was 59. Now it's 58. Pacific was 59. Now it's 57. No, if it was 59, it's still 59. The Western Conference was 64. Now it's 63. So that part of it hasn't changed that much. But what has changed is what the teams have done between then and now, which for every team is a little bit different. But, since we're a Nashville Predator oriented team or podcast, they had played 29 games back in the middle of December, and they played 38. So 38. So in that time period, they played 9 games. I thought it would be 10, but maybe I guess I got the 12th would have included the game against Calgary. So yeah, all right. So what does that do? Well, the differences are the ordering. The The Toronto has gone past Florida, which is no surprise because that's. I guess that is a little bit of a surprise because Toronto's on top. But it looks like Toronto has gone past Florida. It doesn't no surprise because Toronto's on top. Yeah, got it. Never mind. But in the Atlantic, it's still Toronto, Florida, and Tampa Bay. Those three kind of swap places. In the Metropolitan, Washington, Carolina, New Jersey, nothing different there. Carolina, New Jersey swapping places. In the Central, Winnipeg, Minnesota, and Dallas, Minnesota and Winnipeg swapping places. In the Pacific, Vegas, LA, and Edmonton, and those three in the same places. In the Eastern Conference, I had three teams that were vying for the wild card spot. The Rangers with projected 95 points, Boston and Philadelphia with projected 92. I did say 90, 93, 94 is what it would take, but if you only get to 92, somebody's got to get the wild card team, right? So those two teams were at 92. There were two teams at 91, Columbus and New York Islanders, and then the rest, Pittsburgh was in the 90s, and then everybody in the Atlantic was there were in the 80s. So that there was a chasm between the top four and the bottom four in the Atlantic. In the and how that changed is that Boston is still there, projected at 94 points, but Ottawa has played well enough to move up from their projected 88 to a projected 93. So they have gotten better, moved themselves into a playoff spot, and with the Flyers and the Rangers not playing so well and dropping back out of potential wild card spot, the Flyers dropped from 92 to 88, and the Rangers, of course, 95 to 85, currently the second worst team in the East. And that's really the major change. In the West, the teams vying for the wild card spots is still the same. The Avalanche, the Blues, Utah, Utah and St. Louis swapping places, and Vancouver and Calgary out of the Pacific in the same order. The most likely right now being Colorado and Vancouver, and before it was Colorado and Utah. So a little bit of change there as far as the ordering overall, but the teams still vying for it look like the teams that are vying for it. And the Central out are the Predators and the Blackhawks, who have swapped places. Both of them have dropped points. The Nashville went from a projected 88 to 85, and then Chicago 90 to 82. And then in the Pacific, the same three teams, Seattle, Anaheim, and San Jose, all in that same vein. The Seattle and Anaheim dropped 2 points from 90 to 88, and then San Jose from 85 to 78. So you see that some teams are on a downward trend, and
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Again, just December. Remember back when watched a lot of games for the Kings, and like December was the worst month. January was the worst month. They would always suck. And then they turned things around February and March, late January, February, March, turn it around, make the playoffs, and be eighth. And we all know that in 2012 and 2014, they won the Stanley Cup, entering the playoffs as the number 8 wild card team. In 2012, they had to play all the top seeds. And Jonathan Quick stood on his head, winning 2-1, 1-0 games all season long to get them there. And same thing in the playoffs. we got to see the 4-game sweep of St. Louis. We were there for Game 4, and we made it for Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Finals when they won the finals. I think I mentioned this before. The kind of neat thing about where our seats were is that we were 2 rows down from where Bob Miller and Jim Fox were calling the game, so you could turn around and look at them and wave and say hi and whatnot. And it was just, it was just really, really neat to be there and to be there when they won. It's hard to time things like that, and I know it can be kind of expensive if you have the opportunity. And to say, when we were in line going into the stadium for Game 6, the people ahead of us said they had bought the tickets that day for $50. Now, we were living in Seattle at the time, and I wasn't going to fly to L.A. without tickets, so we had watched the game was on Monday. We were playing golf on Sunday, and Sunday morning cheapest tickets were going for $700, and by the time our round had ended, by the late afternoon, they were down to about $200, and so we bought the tickets, bought our airline flights, and got hotel rooms. Maybe we'd already gotten the hotel room because that we could cancel easily, but the people in front of us were, had gotten the tickets that morning for like $50. So, good for them. If I had lived locally, I could have tried that too. But, traveling, before I get on the plane, I want to make sure I have the tickets. But that was really something, and just proof that all you have to do is make the playoffs. If you make the playoffs, you have a chance. I like to joke, I don't play the lottery. I don't buy scratch tickets or anything like that. And I think I have the same chance of winning as if I do. And I know that's not technically true. I think in reality it is true, but it's not technically true. But if you make the NHL playoffs, your opportunity to win the Stanley Cup is significantly higher than if you do not. Number 8 seeds can and have won, even in the current system of the reordering. So, that's the goal. The goal is to make the playoffs and be playing well when you get there. And the Kings were able to do that for 2 years. Daryl Sutter and the GM at this point, I've forgotten his name. I can see his face, and I apologize. I should have looked that up beforehand. I realized I was going to go on such a tear. But sad to see Daryl Sutter leave L.A. Glad he's doing well. I think he did a great job for the Kings, and the coaches leading up to that too. And I struggle. I should have looked up the names. The guy who was the coach beforehand. We used to we used to come to games and we'd get the seats 3 rows. Like 3 rows behind the Kings bench, and we couldn't get the aisle seat, so we'd be sitting in the second and third seats. Well, the aisle seat was the coach's wife, Miller. I want to say not Miller, but he did a really good job of coaching. I don't think he necessarily got the credit he deserved. He was the guy who convinced Anze Kopitar that he needed to play the full length of the ice, and that took a lot of work on Kopitar's part to learn how to do that, and he's undeniably one of the best. Does not get the recognition he deserves either, but definitely, they had a lot of success in LA during that time, and it was the special collection of people that came there and did that. So kudos to all of them. Again, the Preds are not out of the playoffs yet. They definitely need to definitely need to win. I mean, there's no substitute for winning. Okay, so that's our playoff discussion.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
The upcoming opponents. Now, I laugh every time I say this because they are on a 6-game road trip, which if you were just watching the telecast, they keep calling it a 5-game road trip. They are playing at St. Louis, at Winnipeg, at Minnesota, at Vancouver, at Calgary, and at Winnipeg. Now, my wife's the calculus teacher, but simple math I've always been good at. And that's 6. Now, I think the reason why, which is dumb, but I think not calling the people on the telecast dumb, but I think they're confused because since the first game was in St. Louis on the 27th at St. Louis, and then they had, 3 days later they were in Winnipeg, since probably the media and the team went to St. Louis and came back to Nashville and then went to Minnesota. Ergo, they're traveling for 5 of those away games, but that does not make it a 5-game road trip. It is a 6-game road trip. And so tonight, they finished the 4th game tonight against Vancouver, the 4th game. And so what I'm talking about in this podcast are the last 2 of the 6 games, which is Calgary tomorrow and then Winnipeg again on Tuesday. So Calgary, it seems weird, but not even halfway through the season. This is the last game of 3 with Calgary. It's the second one in Calgary. Both games were win for Calgary so far, 0-2 and 3-4. Calgary is 18-13-7 overall, 13-5-3 at home. So they are a very good home team. We've played a couple of teams on this trip so far, on this 6-game road trip. And their home record wasn't so good, but they managed to beat us anyway. But Calgary is a very good home team. They played last night and lost. They lost. Vancouver won. Shocker. But Vancouver is 5th in the Pacific with 43 points. They are now 1 point behind Vancouver, who has played 1 less game. Vancouver won last night, and Calgary did not. Calgary was ahead of Vancouver, but they swapped spots. Calgary is 6 points ahead of Seattle, who was beaten by Vancouver last night in a shootout, by the way. And Seattle has played 1 more game than Calgary. Tonight's game for Calgary is the last of 3 at home. They are 1-1 so far. They had a 3-1 victory over Vancouver and then a 3-5 loss to Utah. After tonight, they go on a 2-game road trip, which is a 2-game road trip because you play 2 games on the road. Doesn't depend how many nights you spend in a hotel. Winnipeg, on the other hand, this is also the 3rd game, but this is we play Winnipeg 4 times, but this is the 3rd game of 4 versus Winnipeg, and it's the 2nd one in Winnipeg. So far in this series with Winnipeg, the home team has held serve, which is not good news given the next game will be in Winnipeg. And then these 2 teams will meet for the last time in the regular season at the end of February in Nashville. Winnipeg, 27-11-2, 14-3-2 at home, so even better home team record than Calgary. First in the Central with 56 points. They are 4 points ahead of Minnesota, who has played one less game. Winnipeg currently is first in the league, but they are only 1 point ahead of Vegas. 3 points ahead of Washington. Both have played 2 less games. This is the third game of an 8-game homestand. I think even the Nashville statisticians couldn't get that one wrong. That shouldn't be so. It just come on. I just come on. Give me a break. Anyway, whatever. I guess the TV crew has started to get on my nerves again. For a little while, I was trying to, I heard some good things from them and liked kind of where they're going. And then they had to go and do this. Oh, yeah, got in trouble with penalties. They committed 2 penalties. I guess overall they committed 3 penalties against Winnipeg, but two back-to-back. The penalties got them in trouble, but it wasn't too many penalties. It was taking penalties. And then it is a 6-game road trip. So as far as Winnipeg, this is the third game in their 8-game homestand, nice long homestand. They did lose to Anaheim 3-4 in their last game and the last night, and then they play Detroit Saturday before playing Nashville on Tuesday.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Notable personnel changes. Calgary. The center, Justin Kirkland, is out for the season with an ACL. He's third in shooting, 22%. That's his only notable stat. 2 goals on 9 shots, so nothing really, that's not really notable, but it was notable. It was notable. The other guy out also for ACL, out for the season also, right wing Anthony Mantha, who's first in shooting percentage at 26.7%, 4 goals on 15 shots. Don't really think that those 2 losses will hurt Calgary overall. I was thinking that Mantha had better stats. For some reason, his name stuck out for me, and I thought that would be a bigger deal. But yeah, they're missing a center and a right wing, so I don't think that's really going to be holding them back. No recent transactions, which I was kind of surprised about, but nothing notable. Winnipeg, not really missing anybody of any notable stats either. Defenseman Hayden Fleury, defenseman Dylan Sandberg, and center Mason Appleton. Fleury and Sandberg are scheduled to be back in time for the Nashville game, and I guess we'll see if that changes. Kaprizov was not back for the Minnesota game, but that didn't seem to matter, I guess, since we decided to piss them all off. But Fleury and Sandberg, no notable stats, so I don't if they're back or not back. They beat us without them anyway, so, Wow. Okay, so Calgary, people to watch. Number 10, center Jonathan Huberdeau. He's first in goals with 16, second in points with 13, so makes him first in points with 29. He is near last in penalty minute in plus minus at -8. So definitely somebody that when he's on the ice, something's going to happen. And second in shooting, which I guess is kind of scary because he's first in goals. Second in shooting percentage at 24.6%. Just about 25. 16 goals on 65 shots. So number 10, definitely somebody to worry about. Next up, number 52, defenseman Mackenzie Weegar, who's first in assists. Second in plus minus with a second in time of ice of 23.14. So that's pretty good. Weegar on the ice, I guess he got 16 assists. I didn't note his points, but plus minus is 7. So I'd say more good things happen for Calgary when Uyghur's on the ice than not, at least from a scoring percentage. And then number 91, center Nazem Kadri, second in goals with 14, second in points, 27, last in plus minus at minus 13. So hopefully good things for the Preds when number 91 is on the ice, and he's first in shots with 133. So number 91, 52, and 10. 91 and 10 forwards, 52 is defensemen. So that's Calgary. With Winnipeg, number 81, left wing Kyle Connor was tied in first in goals until last night when he didn't get one, and the guy he was tied with did. So he's second in goals in 22, second in assists with 30, first in points with 52, and first in shots with 134. Busy guy. Who's now first in goals by himself, number 55, center Mark Scheifele. First in goals with 23, second in points with 45, second in shooting percentage. Again, this is something to worry about, the shooting percentage here. 23 goals on 91 shots for a shooting percentage of 25%. And then number 44, defenseman Josh Morrissey, first in assists with 33 and first on time of ice, 24-33. So that's for Winnipeg, number 81 and 55-44.
Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
Okay, for your Nashville Predators, they are now 11-20 and 7. On the road, 3-13 and 4. They are 7th in the Central Division because Chicago sucks. Apparently, they found a way to suck worse than Nashville. Pardon my French. Don't mean to be. I guess what I'm saying is not that bad, but still, I think ought to be cleaner than that. But we're 3 points ahead of Chicago. I mean, well, the Preds have won 4 in their last 10. So, wow. I told one of my cousins over Christmas, he's like, "Oh, you still doing that Nashville podcast?" I'm like, yeah, but it's tough. It's tough because they're losing so much. So guys, win a few more. Make my job a little more happy. Yeah, that's the motivation they need. There you go. That's what they needed. That's what they were looking for. Not. So they are 3 points ahead of Chicago. They're 11 points behind Utah and St. Louis. I suppose this team's managed to win a couple of games here lately. St. Louis has played one more, like big whoop. 11 points. They played one more. It's that game, the Nashville's game in hand. It's really not going to make up for 11-point differential. That's why they need to win. So these, the two games against Calgary and Winnipeg are the end of a 6-game road trip. On which they are 0-3 and 0 so far, playing Vancouver tonight. Notable personnel changes. I saw a little bit of difference between Puckpedia and what was on ESPN site. But it looks like a couple of the guys have come back. Was it Lazon? I deleted the names already. But they're back. A couple of defensemen. What was it? Not Wise. They've recalled center Ozzy Weisblatt from Milwaukee, and I heard a lot leading up to the season. Heard a lot about Spencer, and I thought I knew how to pronounce it. Stastny. They re-signed him and whatnot. Very excited about all of this stuff. Adam Wilsby, he's the one that's back. Adam Wilsby's back. So he's been recalled. We don't have enough people who have never played in the NHL before this season playing for defense for our team, and we've lost 3 in a row. So let's call up another defenseman from Milwaukee, and let's see if we can. Let's just take old Luke Shen out of the. And why give Roman Yossi the night off? And who needs Brady Skay? We get Adam Wilsby and Spencer Stasny, Tanner Bolendijk, Mark Delgazzo, Nick Blakenberg, and Justin Barron. Let's take those 6. Let's pull their names out of a hat and get a defensive lineup out there. That sounds like fun. But anyway, Stasny's been called up. Nothing about him. I need an attitude adjustment. Oh my gosh. Wow. Who knew that was coming? Okay. So anyway, right wing Cole Smith, off the list on ESPN, but according to Puckpedia, he's still on injured reserve, won't be back until February. And I think that's probably better. But I guess time will tell. Anyway, the other notable person out is left wing Zachary Leroux on a 3-game suspension for the match penalty against Minnesota, footing, something called slew footing. He decided that Minnesota wasn't playing enough, and I guess he swiped slow footing. The definition of what he did and what the definition is basically, taking somebody's leg out and then pulling them backwards. So, kicking their legs out. That way they fall really hard. And so I guess he did take the feet out from this guy. I don't know that he necessarily pulled on him from the back, but then the guy went hard into the boards. And now he's in a cast and a boot and getting an MRI and probably out for a season, having to have surgery, all because of Leroux got stupid, and committed this penalty. And this is the sort of crappy stuff that is just dumb. And, first of all, didn't accomplish anything except igniting Minnesota. He's going to get his face beat in the next time he sees anybody from Minnesota. And now he's out for a couple days. Now it turns out, I didn't go and do a lot of research, but the article I looked at said that he had been suspended 9 times in the Quebec League and twice in the AHL. He's 21 years old, and this is his 12th suspension. There's an attitude adjustment in there waiting to happen. 5'11", 197. And that's Zachary Leroux. You're not. That kind of stuff doesn't help your team. I know he's not listening, but that kind of stupid stuff doesn't help your team. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help your career. Whatever the heck is in your mind when you're doing this stuff, you need to stop. You just need to stop because again, you're not helping your team. Got the match penalty. So the difference between a match penalty and a game misconduct is that there's a 5-minute major that goes along with it. In addition to whatever else might get called. A game misconduct doesn't necessarily have any penalties that go along with it. The match penalty also requires a review by the commissioner. It says commissioner in the rule book. I went and I looked it up in the NHL rule book. But the Committee of League Safety, which the commissioner's probably on, had to have a call. And I guess they did a phone call with him, which if it's a phone call, would be a maximum of 5 games suspension. So I guess that happened yesterday, and he received 3-game suspension. But that's he got the match penalty. Somebody got not a fighting, but they got a 2 minutes. So there was a 4-on-4, and then a 3 minute. The rest of the major penalty 3 minutes when the other team could score as much as they want, and they did get a goal. So, that not helping your team. That's what that is. Players to watch for the Preds. Number 81, Jonathan Marchessault, right wing, first in goals, third in assists, second in points, second in shots. First in goals with 14. Second in goals with 11 is Mr. number 91, center Steven Stamkos. And then third in goals, you got to mention him. Mention the goals primarily because number 9, left wing Philip Forsberg, has been stuck on 9 goals since November 25th. He is first in assists. He's still helping out the team, unlike Zachary Herrera. He's first in points with 30, which is also a desirable statistic as opposed to how many we've been kicked out of games. And first in shots, which I'm not exactly sure matters, but he's first in shots with 128. And then number 59, defenseman Romy Josi, second assist with 17. Number 1 in time on ice with 25.03. Last in plus minus. At minus 24. So when Josi is on the ice, and who am I looking for? It's got to be Calgary. Oh, yeah, Calgary. So when number 91 for Calgary and number 59 for Nashville are both on the ice, watch out. Watch out. Something's going to happen. It's got to happen, man. It's got to happen. All right. So that's the people to watch for the Predators. The Preds stats on the road, not very good. 3-13-4. Getting the first goal is not helping them. They're 2-3-2 when they get the first goal, but they're 1-10-2 when they do not. So getting the first goal does help from that standpoint. Mention that because that's one of the things I heard last year that kind of annoyed me. The announcers kept saying that first goal mattered, and it turned out I was wrong. The first goal did matter. This year, I'm not so sure, at least not for the Preds. If they get it, they're better off than not. That would be the one thing to say about that. When the winning goal is being scored is interesting because right now on the road, 50% of the time, the winning goal is being scored in the second period. Overall, regardless of who wins and where they play, the highest percentage is also the second period, so 34%. And last season, similar, especially on the road. Especially for the road team, I guess would be the way to say it for last season, because when the Preds were on the road, I guess it was a home team. The home team. No, the opponents. Last season, 65% of the time on the road, when the other team won, they scored the winning goal in the second period. And for the home team, and when the Preds won on the road, 42% of the time in the third period. And then that switched. So for home, on the home, the Preds would win at home 39% of the time in the second period. And then for the opponents, 44% of the time is in the third. So I guess for the home team last year, there was a significant that typically, and I don't have this math, which would be interesting, but for the home team, primarily they would get the winning goal in the second period. And then the visiting team would get it in the third, 42%. If it was, if the Preds were on the road, and if the Preds were home, then 44% for the opponents, and then 65 though for the home team when the Preds were on the road when they won. That seems a little out there. Not exhibiting that this year. This year, the winning goal is primarily being scored in the second period, regardless. So on the road, if the Preds win or lose, the winning goal scored in the second period the bulk of the time, 50%, and then I guess at home it's evenly distributed, not in the second period. That 17%, when the Preds are home, 17% of the time the winning goal is scored in the second period, and scored 28% in the other three, the first, third, and overtime. The Preds not having a shootout yet, one of, I think, 7 or 8 teams that have not. Kind of interesting. Thought I might have cursed them by saying that. But yeah, so the winning goal being scored primarily right now in the second period. Goal scoring is bad. The Preds, let's focus on the road, since 2 games on the road here, are being outscored in the first period 11-15, the second period 15-25, and the third period 12-25. Even when they win, they're being outscored in the first period 1-2, and in the 3 wins, there were only 3 goals scored in the first period. In the second period, they are outscoring 8-2. And then in the third period, when they win 3-2, but they do have 2 empty net goals. So technically, they're being outscored 1-2 in the third period when they win, removing the empty net goals. So when they win, they're winning the second period. They've done it 4 times, and 3 of those 4 times they won the second period they won the game. So they have not won a game on the road without winning the second period. And on the first period, the correlation isn't nearly there. In fact, they haven't. In the 3 wins on the road, they lost the first period and tied the first period twice. They lost it once, tied it twice. So they have not won the first period when they won any of the 3 victories. That reverses with the second period, and then in the third period, they won the third period 3 times, but they're 1-2. So their 3 wins, they won the third period once and tied it twice. The second period is definitely where they are having their issues. And if, they can win the second period, that's what I saw it said against, was it Winnipeg the other night? They tied, they had no scoring in the first, and Winnipeg wound up getting a late goal in the second. And it just kind of seemed like it was, like that was about it. Differential and scoring. I've got these matrix where I look at the differential scoring based upon the scoring in the first period. I haven't really seen anything terribly notable in there for the opposition scoring or the Preds. So not really much to talk about there. So let's move to the matchups. All right, so we've got upcoming games against Calgary and Winnipeg. Last year, the Preds were 1-2 against Calgary, 0-1 in Calgary. They won the middle game, 4-2 in Nashville. So they won the first game in Nashville and lost the second game. The Preds scored 2 goals in all 3 first periods last year. So they got off to a good start last year. And in this year, the 2 games, they scored 2 goals also in one of those. And the other one, they scored 0. In Calgary, they scored 0. Nashville, they scored 2. So in 4 of the 5 games they've played them, they've managed to score 2 goals in the first period. And they're 3-1 in those four periods. They won 3 of the periods, lost 1, and they tied the other one. The Preds have been scoreless, or the Preds were scoreless in the second period of all 3 games last year, and 1 of 2 this year. So so in the 5 games that they played last year and this year, the Preds managed to 80% of the time scored 2 goals in the first and 0 in the second. Now, this year, in the game in which they did score a goal, they only scored 1. And that was in Nashville, and they won that game. So in those 5 periods, in the second period, they were 0-3-2. Now, granted, they did manage to win one of those games. And then 1-2-2 in the third period. Last year, they were 1-1-1 in the third period, 0-1-1 this year. They did get the first goal in the first 2 games last year, so a loss and a win. And they got the first goal in the second game this year. In the last 10 games, so that's how the Preds and Calgary match up. But Flames, are 5-3-2 in their last 10 games. That should probably be more in the different section. That kind of threw me for a second. I don't know why. It's always been part of this section, but Winnipeg, on the other hand, Nashville was 2-2 versus Winnipeg last year, 1-1 in Winnipeg, winning the middle 2 of the 4-game series. Last year, the Preds scored 3 goals in 3 of the games and 4 in 1, and that one was a win. So one of the 3 games was a win, and then the one they scored 4 in. Winnipeg scored 6 and 4 in their wins and 2 goals in their losses. So it's kind of like a race to 3. That's kind of what it looks like against Winnipeg. This year, Nashville's 1-1 against Winnipeg with the home team holding serve. 3 games also seems to be the winner this year. Nashville was a 4-1 win, and Winnipeg was an 0-3 win. So a race to 3. Maybe it's a race to 1. No. First goal doesn't necessarily win. The Preds got the first goal in all but the first game last year, which was a loss. And then they got the first goal in the first game this year. Obviously not the second because they were shut out. The Jets are taking on Detroit at home next tomorrow, I believe. And then excluding that game, they are 6-2-2 in their last 10 games, so not too bad. Goal scoring, Winnipeg definitely has the advantage of these 3 teams. They're scoring 142 goals to Calgary's 98 and Nashville's 91. Only giving up 96 to Calgary's 110 and Nashville's 122. Fairly even for Winnipeg on giving up goals, and similar for Calgary. Calgary giving up goals 30 in the first, 31 in the second, and then taking out the empty netters 37. So a little bit more in the third period. Winnipeg 26, 30, and 30. And that's taking out the empty netters. Winnipeg's given up 9 empty netters and Calgary only 6, which was kind of a surprise. Nashville, on the other hand, gives up 26 in the first, which is the best of the 3, 44 in the second, which is the worst of the 3, and then taking out the empty nets 12, which is also the worst of the 3. But they've had, they've got more losses. It's that kind of follows. I don't see Nashville having 12 empty net goals against them being a big deal. That's not what caused them to lose. So so it would be 33, taking out those 33 goals in the third period. So the second period is where they are giving up the most. As far as scoring goes, Calgary, not so much in the first period, with only 22, 32, and 32, taking out their empty nets, which is 10 in the second and third. Winnipeg, 36, 45, and 46. So, even 36 to 46. I mean, 36, they don't score as many goals in the first period, but they score more goals in the first period than the other two teams do in any period. And if you want to look at it this way, Winnipeg scores more goals in the first period, their lightest goal-scoring period, than Calgary gives up in any three of theirs, excluding empty net. 4-37. Oh, that was so close. That was so close to being true. Damn it. Oops, sorry. Now that I can't apologize for. Anyway, the Preds 30, 28, and 23, taking out empty net goals. The third period, not a high goal scoring period, but not really where they're losing it. Not really where they're losing the games. A couple of strengths and weaknesses. Winnipeg is number one in power play percentage with 32%, 39 on 122 chances. So they got 2 the other night versus Nashville. That was the problem. Stupid penalties. Nashville is 5th now in penalty kill, primarily because of the same stat. They are 83%, giving up goals on 19 out of 118 chances. So good, definitely good. Calgary, the only thing I could find for Calgary, I tried too hard. I tried doing an AI search, came up with nothing. So much for that. But Calgary is tops. They are number one in shootout wins. They have 3. They're 3-1. Somebody else is 2-0. They don't. So I mean, but they had the highest number of wins. So there you go, Calgary. Don't get in a shootout with Calgary. That's the lesson there. Weaknesses. I'm sure I could have found a bunch for Calgary. Could have found a lot more for Nashville. The one I wanted to call out was that they are 8th in the league in penalties with 118. Other teams ahead of them, they have more penalties and they have better records. So it's not just the penalties, and their penalty kill's been fine. So it just maybe it's anyway. Just need to find a way to score more. I know anything about that. Anyway. Looking at the NHL Edge stats to see how the teams match up against each other. Calgary and Nashville, the diagrams look like, almost identical how they match up in the 8 different 8 different areas that are on that spider graph. And then interestingly enough, Calgary gets above average scoring from the left point. Which seemed to be earlier in the season when I was checking this out, the place where the least number of goals seemed to be scored from. But Calgary seems to be doing pretty well overall from the league average. From the left point, Nashville gets above average scoring from the right wing, which was also kind of interesting. And then Nashville, the pretty balanced, nothing standing out where they are above league average. So they are pretty average to below average, which is amazing given that they are the highest goal-scoring team in the league. But they're balanced with regards to where everybody else is scoring in the league. So nothing there. How they match up on the spider graph, pretty evenly. Like everybody else, except Calgary, they've got more goals and better shooting percentage, and all that makes sense, right? Because the Preds aren't scoring goals, so you got to score more goals. Everybody's scoring more goals except Chicago, I guess. and top shot speed. Now, one thing that was interesting was that Winnipeg's skating distance is higher. And earlier in the season, we had played some teams, I think the Rangers and forget who else that we played. And their skating distance was, that's right. I had to go back and check. And this is Winnipeg's skating distance is lower. So they get more points for that. Their skating distance is lower. But I thought, when I've looked at it before with other teams, I thought, well, that was an advantage for Nashville, but the teams that they were playing, they were losing to, and the skating distance was higher. So I thought, well, now I'm not sure what to think about skating distance, except maybe I shouldn't even talk about it. It's about the only thing that generally is looks better for Nashville, so I kind of have to, but not exactly sure that I guess I'm back to being confused. I am back to being confused about skating distance now that I've looked at what Winnipeg is doing. So, there you go. So, as far as momentum goes, where are these teams at? Calgary, in the last month, they seem to have trouble putting two wins together. They just haven't, or they did it once. They lost last night to Utah, 3-5, and so they're 1-1 on the homestand. Going back and looking at the when they lose games, they've lost one in a row, as many as they've lost multiple games in a row. So in my opinion, since they lost in their last game, they should lose to Nashville. And that would be more consistent with how their loss streaks have been going. That's my opinion, based upon just a cursory analysis of winning and losing. Maybe they are no, that's not alternating. Loss. Yeah, they won one. They lost to Utah. They played Nashville. Before that, they lost one, and before that, they won two. So they lost two, lost one. And so they've lost one, which means they need to lose more than one to keep that particular streak and their standings going. So I from that standpoint, I think they're going to lose to Nashville. Winnipeg started strong. They stumbled around the end of November. The Superman's cape kind of got pulled off, or it took off his glasses, whatever the phrase is. And they lost their last two games, but they had not lost two in a row in a month. And so I don't like the fact that they just lost two in a row. Granted, one of them, if you want to put an asterisk by it, was the second half of a back-to-back, which Winnipeg seems to always lose. Comrie in goal, second game of a back-to-back. They lost to Nashville lost to Colorado after beating Nashville. And that seems to be, is that the only time Comrie plays? Last time he played Anaheim, I was in a back-to-back, and then before that was Columbus in a back-to-back, and then before that he played Vegas, was not a back-to-back, and then before that was against Nashville in a back-to-back, and then so he's had I guess they've only had four back-to-backs, but anyhow. The fact that they have lost two kind of worries me, but they do have to play Detroit tomorrow night. So I think playing Detroit, they're going to beat Detroit. That will be their win. Just glancing back up in here, they do not have a lot of one-win, quote-unquote, streaks. 1, 2. 2 is it. They boy, they have more 2-win streaks than 1-win streaks. But I'm hoping this will add to their 1-win streak, and then they'll go back and lose again. About the only thing you can hope for. Nashville has only had 2 winning streaks at all in this whole season, and they've lost their last 3. They play Vancouver tonight. Should be a win. They match up pretty well with Vancouver. They also match up really well against Calgary. They should be going up against Winnipeg, having won 2 in a row. They should. They definitely should. Goaltenders. Moving on. Goaltenders. Dustin Wolf at 12-5-2 Calgary. And Don Vladar, 6-8-5, seem to be sharing the crease. They've had 19 games each. Both have played against Nashville this year. They were both wins for Calgary. Looks like, just looking at the way they do, after they have a loss, they swap goaltenders. So if there's a guy in goal and he loses, then they change goaltenders. Not the only time, because they were on a winning streak and they swapped goaltenders, and I think they won and then they lost. So that not. When they go on a big losing streak, they're swapping goaltenders every night. And then when they won the first 4 and they were swapping goaltenders. So I think that's seems to be the way they are going about them. And Vladar was in goal against Utah last night for the 3-5 loss. So I'm expecting to see Wolf in goal against Nashville tomorrow night. As far as Winnipeg, Connor Hellebuyck gets most of the starts. He's 24-5-2. Eric Comrie, 3-6-0. Both games versus Nashville this year were back-to-backs, as I mentioned. And the first time, it was the second game of the back-to-back, and Comrie was in goal, which was a loss for Winnipeg, win for Nashville. And then in the game a couple nights ago was the first game of a back-to-back, and so Hellebuyck was in goal, and it was a win for Winnipeg. There's no game front or behind the next time that Winnipeg plays Nashville, so you expect Hellebuyck in goal. No reason to expect them to do different. Comrie's got nine goals in game, 9 games in goal so far this year. They're not trying to play him a lot, but so Hellebuyck in goal Tuesday night against Nashville. For Nashville, Calgary tomorrow night will be the second half of a back-to-back, playing Vancouver tonight. Just looking back at how things have gone. Saros has been in goal for both of the losses to Calgary this year, and he was in goal for the win for Vancouver. For Annunen, he didn't face Vancouver last year for Colorado, but he did get 1 win and 1 start versus Calgary. So I'm expecting to see Saros tonight. I know that's what I said in the previous podcast, but I don't know where my mind was. I didn't recognize that Vancouver was part of a back-to-back, and so I would have needed to have taken that into consideration instead of just saying, hey, Saros is going to be in goal. But I think I was right. Saros in goal tonight. I didn't bother to look up who the starting goalies were projected for tonight because I didn't care. Since Calgary played last night, since Vancouver played last night, knew who Vancouver was going to play tonight, and then making it up here. I blew it. I didn't recognize back-to-back, even though I think I said it in the podcast. Didn't think about it when I got to the point of doing the goaltender analysis. But yeah, so I got lucky. Saros in goal versus Vancouver, and I think Annunen in goal versus Calgary. I don't really want to do a quick check to find out. I think that's just how it's going to be. And that's what I'm just going to say because that's all that matters. All right. So who to watch for? Tomorrow night in Calgary, number 10, center Jonathan Huberdeau. Number 52, defenseman Mackenzie Weegar. And number 91, center Nazem Kadri. Again, look out for Kadri and Yossi on the ice at the same time, not just because their last names both end in I, or they both have a 9 in their numbers. But there you go. Number 10, Huberdeau, 52, Weegar, number 91, Kadri. Against Winnipeg, typical suspects. Number 81, left wing, Kyle Connor. Number 55, center, Mark Scheifele. And number 44, defenseman Josh Morrissey. So number 81, Connor, 55, Scheifele, and then number 44, Morrissey. That's the Winnipeg trio to look out for. I don't think any of them scored the other night against Nashville. But hey, that's not what matters. What matters is the next game, right? It's next up. We're playing the next game. Okay, so the next game is tonight with Vancouver, and then Calgary, and then Winnipeg. Yes, I was right. Velarde got 2 power play goals. Connor's got 2 assists on those. Dylan DeMelo got the goal in the second period, but Velarde, ex-LA King, Gabriel Velarde, he got the 2 goals in the third period, both power play goals. One was 5-on-3, one was 5-on-4. And that was the game. Kyle Connor got the assists on both of those. Nikolai Ehlers got the other 2 assists on the Velarde goals. So there you go. They must play together, at least on the power play. Velarde, Connor, and Ehlers. Anyway, that's Tuesday night, Winnipeg. Tonight, Vancouver. Tomorrow night, Calgary. And we should be heading into Winnipeg on a 2-game winning streak. All righty. Thanks for listening. I'm Preston Proctor. You've been listening to Predators Proclivity.